The popular modern scientific materialist atheist worldview propagated by NASA, the mainstream media, and the public education system is that you are here because nothingness, for no reason, exploded and created everything. Before time, space, matter, consciousness, intelligence, and life, there was nothing. Then the nothingness exploded. And instead of destroying things like every other explosion ever, this explosion created things, created everything. The nothingness explosion somehow created space, time, and all matter in the universe in an instant and for no reason at all. Then all of the creationary explosive debris flying outward at over 670 million miles per hour for 14 billion years culminated to create you. Yes, first some of the more gaseous nothing came together, forming suns and stars. Then solid pieces of the nothing came together, forming planets and moons. Then the nothing turned hydrogen and oxygen came together, forming water on the nothing planet Earth, out of which single-celled living organisms magically appeared, got to work dividing and multiplying into multi-celled conscious organisms, which multiplied and divided and mutated into various forms of sea life, which adapted and evolved and crawled onto land, replacing gills with lungs, lost tails, grew opposable thumbs, and started grasping at straws like this ridiculous nihilistic notion of Big Bang evolution. This anti-God materialist theory of evolution has been staunchly protected by the infallibility of science for over 150 years, but in actual fact, just as science has failed to find one true, valid proof that Earth is a ball spinning around the sun, scientists have failed to discover a single piece of evidence that the material world is a product of blind chance evolution. Furthermore, Big Bang evolution actually requires and presupposes many other claims which have already been proven false in previous chapters, such as the plurality of worlds, Newton's theory of gravity, Einstein's theory of relativity, stars being distant suns, and Earth being a planet, not a plane. Harun Yahya wrote, "Evolutionary theory claims that life started with a cell that formed by chance. According to this scenario, 4 billion years ago, various lifeless chemical compounds underwent a reaction in the primordial atmosphere on the Earth in which the effects of thunderbolts and atmospheric pressure led to the formation of the first living cell. The first thing that must be said is that the claim that inanimate materials can come together to form life is an unscientific one that has not been verified by any experiment or observation. Life is only generated from life. Each living cell is formed by the replication of another cell. No one in the world has ever succeeded in forming a living cell by bringing inanimate materials together, not even in the most advanced laboratories. The theory of evolution faces no greater crisis than on the point of explaining the emergence of life. The reason is that organic molecules are so complex that their formation cannot possibly be explained as being coincidental, and it is manifestly impossible for an organic cell to have been formed by chance. How could all the interconnected and compartmentalized components, the cell wall, the cell membrane, the mitochondria, proteins, DNA, RNA, ribosomes, lysosomes, cytoplasm, vacuoles, nucleus, and other cell parts magically come together and create conscious, intelligent life from unconscious, dead matter? Just making one average-sized protein molecule is already composed of 288 amino acids of 12 varying types, which can be combined to 10 to the 300th power different ways. Of all those possibilities, only one forms the desired protein molecule, and there are over 600 types of proteins combined in the smallest bacterias ever discovered. Astronomer Fred Hoyle compared the odds that all the multifaceted and multifunctional parts of a cell could coincidentally come together and create life, analogous to a tornado sweeping through a junkyard and assembling a Boeing 747 from the materials therein. Hoyle wrote that if there were a basic principle of matter which somehow drove organic systems toward life, its existence should easily be demonstrable in the laboratory. One could, for instance, take a swimming bath to represent the primordial soup, fill it with any chemicals of a non-biological nature you please, pump any gases over it or through it you please, and shine any kind of radiation on it that takes your fancy. Let the experiment proceed for a year, and see how many of those 2,000 enzymes, protein produced by living cells, have appeared in the bath. I will give the answer, and so save all the time and trouble and expense of actually doing the experiment. You will find nothing at all. except possibly for a tarry sludge composed of amino acids and other simple organic chemicals. Even if scientists placed all the chemical substances necessary for life in a tank, applied to them any processes of their choice, and waited for billions of years, not a single living cell could or would ever form. Astrobiologist Chandra Wickraman Singh wrote, "The likelihood of the spontaneous formation of life from inanimate matter is 1 to a number with 40,000 zeros after it. It is big enough to bury Darwin and the whole theory of evolution. The beginnings of life were not random. They must have been the product of purposeful intelligence. From my earliest training as a scientist, I was very strongly brainwashed to believe that science cannot be consistent with any kind of deliberate creation. That notion has had to be painfully shed. At the moment, I can't find any rational argument to knock down the view which argues for conversion to God. We used to have an open mind. Now we realize that the only logical answer to life is creation, and not accidental random shuffling."